I spent time in a quaint little import shop located a stone's throw from Piccadilly Circus in the heart of London. I wasn't looking for anything, I was just looking at the curiosities displayed there. "Hello, Michael." I heard a familiar female voice softly call a name by which no one had addressed me for a long time. I turned and found myself under the gaze of brown eyes that still make my heart beat. It's amazing what range of feelings can engulf you in a split second. I felt a thrill in my chest, surprise, confusion, a desire to hug this woman, and finally, cold bitterness. I looked at her for what seemed like 10 minutes, but probably less than 10 seconds. "Hello, Gretchen." What a surprise. I returned to watching, not really wanting to engage in conversation with her, but knowing full well that this could not be avoided. Gretchen, I knew, would never leave things as they were. "Do you have a few minutes to chat? I'll let you buy the girls some coffee and we can talk," Gretchen suggested teasingly. "I don't think so, Gretchen. I have time, but I'm not sure we have anything to talk about," I said categorically. I didn't want to be polite to the woman who had ruined my life. I knew she would persist, but she would have to work hard for it. I heard a quiet sigh and then, "Please, Michael, I'd really like to talk to you and I'll buy some coffee." I stared at her blankly for a while and then gave up. "Fine, but call me Mike. I don't go by Michael anymore." She rolled her eyes slightly and said with a hint of arrogance, "I think I've earned the right to call you Michael if I want." "Okay, Pookie, have it your way," I replied. She was visibly shocked that I was using a long-buried term of endearment that I had used when we were together. On happier days, I would teasingly approach her from behind, hugging and caressing her. I always said in a whiny voice, "Come on up, Pookie, and give me some love." "I'm in need, Pookie. I have to get you. Please, Pookie. Let's take off our clothes." She invariably screamed and, giggling, said, "Get away from me, pervert. You won't get any love until I'm ready. Go take a cold shower, booger." Often, these one-act plays would lead to me playfully chasing her around the house and her splashed on me from a kitchen spray bottle. It was all fun, and we both enjoyed it. Those were good times. She was very embarrassed and thought for a second. "You are right, Mike," she said softly and sadly. I was surprised by her reaction and felt that there was much more behind this surrender than words could explain. She cheerfully walked up to the counter and spoke to the owner in a language I had no idea about. The short Asian woman behind the counter looked at me, nodded solemnly, and then bowed, inviting us into the small coffee bar at the back of the store. In front of the bar were two small tables surrounded by wicker chairs. We chose a table, sat down, and a smiling woman brought us 2 coffees. Without even thinking, Gretchen chose a chair facing the bar and the wall, and I walked around the table and took the chair facing the door. Muscle memory doesn't forget. It was a ritual we had practiced thousands, perhaps millions, of times over our 24 years of marriage. I had to face the door. It was a nervous tic, left over, if you like, from his time in Vietnam. After all this time, we still followed our rituals. I think we both noticed this, judging by the curious half-smile that appeared on Gretchen's pretty face. We sat in silence for a long time, and despite all my efforts, my thoughts returned to the moment when I last saw this beautiful woman, my ex-wife. We lived in a small town in Connecticut, and I considered us a happily married couple. Over the past few months, my wife has seemed distant to me. I saw and talked to her every day, but I felt that there was a disconnect between us. I tried to ignore it and redoubled my efforts to attract her and bring her closer to me again, to make her happy. 2 of our children had already left home by that time, trying to gain a foothold in their new roles as adults. Brett, our son and our oldest, was 23 years old and just out of college. During his senior year, he married a sweet girl named Amy, whom everyone adored. He and Amy both work in New York and commute by train to their small townhouse in New Jersey. They achieved some success and stayed deeply in love with each other. It was wonderful to see. Our second child was our fireball daughter, Misty, who was 21 years old. She is the apple of my eye and our wild child. I held my breath and my composure most of the time she was at school. However, by her second year of college, she finally realized that all the no's we heaped on her were for her own good, calmed down, and would soon graduate with her undergraduate degree, often appearing on the dean's list, like this. I was editing an article that was supposed to appear in one of my employer's magazines when my wife called me. "Hello, Michael. This is Gretchen. Would you like to have lunch with me today? I know this is an urgent invitation, but I thought it would be fun to do something different for a change." I was delighted. "Sure, baby. That sounds like a great idea. I'm glad you called. Do you have a place in mind, or should I choose? Meet me at the Paris Cafe in, say, 45 minutes. Is that okay with you?" Gretchen asked in a professional, measured tone. It felt like there was still distance, but at least it was a start. I was overjoyed and really hoped for a thaw in our relationship. "I'll be there with the bells." "Maybe I should wear something else?" I said with a grin, trying to diffuse the situation and show how pleased I was. "Yes, please," she answered, not very cheerfully. "Okay, see you at, 12:15. Thanks, baby, that's a great idea." "I love you," I said, standing up from the table with a huge grin on my face. She simply said, "Okay, see you soon." I hurried to my car and drove across town to meet my beloved wife for lunch. I cannot describe how delighted I was by this simple gesture on her part. When I entered, she was sitting at the table with a glass of wine. I touched her shoulder and leaned in to kiss her. She turned her head slightly and offered me her cheek. I guess that should have told me something. I said, smiling stupidly, "Hello, beauty. Are you looking for a mate?" She grinned slightly. "Let's order so that we have more time to talk later." We placed an order and she started talking about some translation projects she was working on at International Trade, an import-export company where she worked as a language specialist. I ate and listened to her, but began to feel a little awkward. She hardly touched her food. After the dishes were put away, she paid the bill with her business credit card, saying it was fine, and that her boss knew she was buying me lunch. She looked down for quite a long time and was silent. I was about to ask what was the matter when she, looking me straight in the eyes, said, "Michael, you can't say it that easily. Michael, I've been having an affair for about 8 months. I love him and want a divorce." I was stunned, shocked, and destroyed in one fell swoop. I looked at her silently and could not speak. My world split in half in an instant. Never in my life, even after what I saw in the war, have I been so shocked. I was broken at the core. I couldn't think. I couldn't speak. Everything was lost. I was lost. She went on to tell me that he was extremely rich, a billionaire in fact, and that he would bear all the costs of the divorce. Since he is so rich, they will not ask for anything in the divorce. I could keep it all for myself. I seem to remember her saying something about how my little property would remain untouched. At the word property, she made a disgusting gesture with quotation marks in the air. I knew she was talking, but I didn't really hear anything. It was as if I was in a tunnel where I saw my wife's lips moving, but did not hear a sound. All the words were like bells ringing for my death. Then she continued, "This is what I really want, Michael, and it is in our mutual interests if you do not resist. Fighting this will only prolong the agony, but the result will be the same. I'm leaving for Europe with him tonight and won't be back anytime soon. At least not until the divorce is final. Please allow this to happen without interference. You have always been interested in my happiness, and that is what will make me very happy. I'll call the kids when I'm settled in Paris. I'm not sure how they'll take it, but you don't have to worry about it." With these words, she got up and left my life, and I still sat there, not believing what had happened. The children, as it turned out, did not take it very well. They were just as stunned and hurt as I was. She never called them, and I had to break the news to them myself. I was actually accused of killing her and disposing of her body. The months that followed my wife's departure were terrible. The kids and I argued, bitterly, internally, delving into what we did to make this happen and exchanging accusations. I was able to get the name and some information about Gretchen's beau from her office. Then I started searching the internet for any photos or articles about him. Fortunately, I was able to find several photographs of him with a beaming Gretchen in his arms, taken after her departure, which completely refuted the assumption that I was involved in her disappearance. Interestingly, she was not mentioned in any of the photographs, despite the fact that several people were named in the captions. Apparently, they were trying to keep their home life a secret. After about a year, I was able to establish my new life and began to take an interest in life again. During this time, I became friends with a select few employees of Gretchen's former employer. I found out that senior executives not only knew about Gretchen's affair, but also provided cover for her. It seemed that some of her beau's companies provided a lot of work and products for international trade, so they felt it was in their best interest to make him happy. They even sent memos to some employees, advising them to keep everything secret and not pay attention to what was happening. Gretchen's affairs took place during the company's official time. Can you say lawsuit? Yes, I sued them. Now I live quite comfortably at their expense. I don't get my pound of flesh from Gretchen or her beau. Part of our divorce agreement was that I would never reveal the identity of her beau, but I don't mind making the guilty party feel my pain. More than 3 years have passed since our last dinner, and I found myself sitting at a common table opposite my beloved ex-wife. She still looked very beautiful. The best clothes, hair, and makeup money could buy, but she had a tired, sad look. Those soulful brown eyes of hers, the eyes that I had always adored, told me nothing. It seemed like she was dead inside. When she was happy and excited, those eyes danced, flashed, and sparkled with life. Today, the fire went out. Apparently, happiness still eluded her. "You look good, Michael. Mike, you may have lost weight and become a little more muscular," she began the conversation. "Thank you," I said simply. This was her show. She wanted it, and she could pull it off. "I can't believe we actually ran into each other in London." "What are the chances?" she continued. "Yes, that's pretty hard to believe," I retorted. "In my new position, I do a lot of translation and even learned a couple of new languages." She continued to fish, looking for an opportune moment. "This has always struck me about you. You are a very talented and beautiful woman," I finally opened up. She suddenly lowered her eyes and shed tears. "Thank you," she whispered. "I haven't been getting any recognition lately. I'm not sure anyone even knows that I'm alive. I thought your husband would expose you to everyone. He never married me. I'm just a sex toy that can speak multiple languages. If he wants to make a good impression on someone, he takes me out to show them how to have a good time and talk to them in their language. A 40-year-old American woman who can speak more than just English, can show people around and pretty much anywhere, and is willing to have sex is, I think, rare. I have become a valuable slut," she said sadly. "What? Why don't you leave?" "Get on the next planey and get out of Dodge," I said heatedly. "It's complicated. I live very, very well, but I am constantly being watched. It would be very difficult for me to leave. Now I can talk to you only because we met by chance and I didn't leave the store. Also, Marika, the owner, is a friend of mine and she kinda covers for me if I need to hide for a while. It sounds terrible, but I think it's your choice. Okay, let's change the subject. Why didn't you ever call your kids? It was very difficult for me to convince them that I did not kill you or dispose of your body. They were truly devastated that they never heard from you. Now I insisted on answers. She only seemed to sink deeper into sadness. I wasn't allowed. I left that same day on a private jet, and access to my old life was completely cut off from me. Like I said, I'm constantly being watched." She suddenly leaned forward and looked straight at me. "Michael, I can't tell you how many nights I lay alone in a big house in an exotic place and wished that I was still lying next to you in our house in Connecticut. God, I miss you and us. I felt myself falling back into an old habit. Fix everything so Gretchen can be happy." I saw how I was being sucked back in and froze. Wait, I said, raising my hands in surrender. "I can't fix your life for you. Moreover, I will not fix your life. How dare you sit here and whine about your life? You made it. You chose it. A whole series of people that I love very much have had to live and cope with the situation that you created for them. It was not what they wanted or chose for themselves. Their lives were forever changed because of the choices and decisions you made without their consent or input. I happened to run into you for the first time in 3 years, and you're only talking about yourself. I'm already tired of listening to you. Do you even realize that you have never asked about your children? What kind of mother does that? For your information, you are now a grandmother. Brett and Amy have a sweet little girl who will be 2 years old in a couple of months. In case you're wondering, her name is Brianna Lynn. Your daughter Misty, remember her? She plans to marry a very nice guy named Trevor in about 6 months. She still hopes that you will be at the wedding, but it is really difficult when we have no address or way to contact you. Perhaps I'll send an invitation here. I started to hyperventilate and paused, but I was on a roll. All my hidden anger and resentment spilled out. As for me, what did I do to deserve the treatment you subjected me to? I loved you with everything I am and everything I had. You left me without even saying goodbye. Do you even realize that you never apologized for ruining my life? Don't sit here and whine. You ruined everything. You've lost us. You lost me. Are you looking for a shoulder to cry on? You can't do that here. You killed that privilege 3 damn years ago in a little cafe in Connecticut. I was about to get up and leave, just like she did 3 years ago, when an angelic voice, with a clearly English accent, burst into the hot twilight. Mike, I sure as hell can't leave you alone for 5 minutes without you chatting with some beautiful woman. I swear, I should beat you to a pulp, she joked, trying to look angry, but her green eyes flashed with mischief. I was so caught up in my tirade that I didn't even notice Pamela enter. I smiled warmly. Hi, baby. Pamela, meet Gretchen, my ex-wife. Gretchen, this is my friend, Pamela. Gretchen had not yet recovered from my verbal attack, and now she was face to face with her replacement. She was silent and tried her best to maintain her composure. Pamela simply extended her hand in the traditional friendly gesture and said, smiling, I'm very glad to meet you, Gretchen. Mike mentioned you often, but not very warmly, I'm afraid. I guess I should thank you for letting that horny guy go and giving me the chance to latch onto him. He can cause a lot of trouble, but I am gradually getting accustomed to him. Pamela looked at me and smiled widely. She gently stroked my shoulder and continued, Mike, my crazy Yankee, I'm afraid we have to go if we want to catch the train to Ely. Sorry to interrupt you, but I'm worried about time. I patted her on the leg. Don't worry, my sweetie. I'm just finishing up. Then I turned to the still resisting Gretchen and said, It's time for us to run, but thank you for the coffee and for giving us your time. I'll say hi to the kids from you and tell them that you said you loved them, even though that's a bit of a lie. I shook her hand and then said, I hope you find happiness someday, Gretchen, but I'm afraid you're looking for it in the wrong place. Thank you also for 23 good years. Mostly these have been happy years for me, and I really thank you for that. Goodbye, Gretchen. Gretchen continued to sit there, looking as shocked as I had 3 long years ago. Pamela and I went out into the bustling life of London to meet the appointed train. She never asked about the meeting, but I think she heard enough to know that it was not a joyful reunion. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Yes, I felt free, and even a little happy.